You did something. How did you get here? So I don't even know how to, I'm wordless because you do things that I tell parents to do and they just refuse to do. So for example, when I got my dyno, this is now 15 years ago, I expected it to be busy every day with dads in the area who just wanted to know what they had. Whether they used my shop or not, I figured, hey, I'm going to call up this shop. We're going to bring our bike by. I built it from so-and-so, and I'm just going to see what my bike does. Or we're going to go dyno 5 bikes. Like you said, the stock bikes, all the stuff that I do to try to make my products good, all the stuff you were doing trying to make your kids win seems obvious to me, which is, hey, we should know what we have. How did you approach your motorcycles? It's obviously not just about horsepower. It's about the bike, the chassis, every little piece of it. But you were very involved in the motorcycle and you still are today. How come you were one of the few dads actually doing that? Or maybe there are more doing it than I know. But I mean, I've worked with a lot of these top kids now who don't even know what they have. You know, they have no clue. They don't even try. They just go out, send out money, and think that what they have is good.
I mean, like I said, I mean, we committed a lot of time to it. I was fortunate enough to be able to not have to go to work and to dedicate all my time to it. So my job was that, right? And so, I mean, in terms of suspension testing, at that time, you know, we were with Race Tech, and they had really good guys that were working there, and they were cool, right? Because we knew where Pro Circuit did a lot of their testing, and so we would go to that track. It's a, you know, off the beaten path track, and I'd bring the Race Tech guys out there, and they would set my bike up, right? And I knew if my bike worked good there, it was going to be at least 80% good everywhere else, right? And so that was one thing, suspension setup and all that. And then obviously engine development changed as they grew older, right? When they were younger, kids, call it in the 9, whatever, 10-year-old range, they needed, even 11, they needed bikes that had a lot of like acceleration, like right off the bottom. But as they grew older, they didn't ride there anymore, right? They were always at the top. And it was really hard to convince the engine builder that I was using for a number of years when they were kids to move that, because in his little dyno program that he had, you could actually race the bikes, right? You could drag them with, you know, like this engine setup versus that engine setup. And his engine setup that always had the like bottom end pull out of the corner would always win the race. But the reality is it was different on the racetrack, right? On the racetrack, in a race, you needed that bike to be long pull, right? Because those national tracks, you know, like Lake Whitney and Mosier, and they were long, fast tracks, right? You needed the bikes to really have legs, right? And so we ended up changing engine builders, you know, and then and the new engine builder that I gave the directive to agreed and followed. And it's very important that everybody's on the same page, right? That everybody agrees, not that somebody thinks the direction should be different, but they all agree on the direction, right? And so we went that direction, and you know, I don't think that we lost a race something like 3 years, right? In mini racing, and that was no matter where we went.
You guys had a really good, I mean, everybody thought you had the best bikes, or at least close to it. And obviously, I mean, not to dredge up any negatives or anything, but they thought they were so good that somebody actually decided to put money down and buy one of your bikes at one point. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like, your bikes were coveted, and I hate it. Like, obviously this is what I do every day. And I don't think some parents don't understand. We're not just trying to market. Like, I actually like building bikes. It's something that I like to do. So you basically took on that role and said, hey, I'm going to manage this. I'm going to test this. I'm going to know what does what. I mean, you still do this to this day as a part of your race program. You're intimately involved in your motorcycle and you know everything about it. To me, this is just a no-brainer, but I just can't believe that more families don't take that approach. Now, at that time, you must have picked up some good help. And obviously, you're Alessi, you're winning races. So it must have helped out whoever you're working with. Did that cost you a lot of money at that time as well? Like, having to be able to have that program, or you managed to work it out in a way that it was advantageous for who you work with?
Most of those programs in those days were full sponsor programs. I mean, I remember when I went and talked to George at FMF, and I told him, hey, I need you to, I can't believe I said that, but yeah, I went in there and, I mean, you couldn't even do that today, I don't think. But I went in there and said, I need you to build me a custom pipe. I need you to build a pipe that is different than the pipes that you sell. And I need you to build it around this motor package, right? And they did, right? I mean, they did incredible things for us, right? And a lot of those sponsors that were out there were willing to go above and beyond, right? What is the norm, right? I mean, because that's a whole deal, right? To build a pipe from scratch based on what our engine spec was. It's craziness, right? But we were able to do things like that. Fuel, we were able to get custom blended fuel. I mean, obviously within the legal limits. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff that we were able to do that other people weren't that far in, right? They were more at what they could either get or buy, right? And we were pushing towards what will it take to make it absolutely the best it can be, right? And so if you can get your partners, your sponsors on the same page with you, sky's the limit.
In hindsight, was that a mistake? Would it have been better to be on slightly lesser amateur equipment to let him battle it out a little bit more?
Hard to say, right? I mean, our focus is always to go to there and win the race, right? And so not to start fifth and not to pass guys, is to start in front of them and win the race, right? Obviously, you know, getting the start is the only place on the track that I know where you can pass 20 guys in one straightaway, right? And so we never thought like that. Our thinking was always based on win the race, right? Race to win, and do what it takes to win the race. So I don't know. Maybe I hear what you're saying, because then when everybody else caught up, obviously when they get onto factory teams and now all the bikes are very equal, right? I hear you. You know what I'm saying? It's a big boost for a lot of those other riders. And as for us, I mean, I've said it 20 times. I was like, man, I should have just, when we turned pro, I should have just ran our own team, right? And not went to a factory team and just said, look, we want those bikes and those parts, but we'll run our own program.
Tony, from your perspective, because now obviously you're very involved, like Derek said, you're very involved in the existing race program that you're managing. How did the sponsors, if you went to FMF and said, can you make us a custom pipe, how would FMF recoup those R&D dollars that they developed for you? Because you sounds like, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but one of the things I've always respected about you, and I've talked, and not so much talk, but I've heard other people when they reference you, is that not only did you ask for a lot, but you were really big on making sure that the people who invested got a return on the investment that they put in. And that's always piqued my interest. Derek and I have talked about it numerous times, including this week, where most good throttle jockeys come in, palms are open, I'm fast on a dirt bike, gimme, 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 gimme. And like Derek and I are saying, we love to sponsor, but we have to run a business that has to be profitable. We need branding, we need recognition, etc. How did you get an ROI? And then I also want to know, how did you do such a good job of maintaining a relationship with your boys, still being father, son, but being manager, mechanic? I know you said you had an agent, but you were obviously involved with a lot of those. I'm very intrigued to get your opinion on that. But how did you bring an ROI back to those that were willing to custom make something like that, as you articulated?
Well, I mean, the key factor is just, advertising what it is that you're doing, right? And what you're using. And you can use select words, right? Got that whole shot on that, an FMF. With that FMF pipe, you can phrase things in there, right? So that you bring awareness to the products that are out there, and to the general public, right? And a lot of them, right, they just want to be on board, like you said, herd mentality. So if they think that the FMF pipe is what's responsible for you getting starts and winning races, they're going to go buy one,
But correct me if I'm wrong. I was told by several people that you would never say that you were using something unless you were using it. Is that true?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean,
I think that I just commend you so much, because we all know that there's people that'll say one thing and do something different. But I've heard from literally over a dozen people that said, one thing that Tony would never do is say he's using something that he's not. And Derek and I, for us, that's, to me, that kind of loyalty and that honesty and that integrity is hard to find. So didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to clarify.
No, I mean, that's a big part of it, right? I mean, that stuff won't be on our bike or in our program if we don't believe it's the best.